Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back. Hope you had a nice Thanksgiving or holiday break. Or if you're not watching this until closer to the holidays in December, hope you have a happy holiday season there. But thanks for tuning in. As always, I'm back to help maximize your Monday, give you some tips, advice in terms of switching industries, finding a new job. And as always, I have a new guest with me. This time, Lindsay is taking some time out of her schedule to jump on with me. So, Lindsay, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me here.
Thanks for having me. Nice to be here.
Of course, yeah. So, um, for people that haven't watched the show or listened before, we try to give some insight in terms of the job search because it's chaotic right now, and so if you've gone through it, if you've switched careers from one industry to the other, that's usually some insight that is very valuable to share. So, Lindsay, you've actually done that a couple times. You've worked in a few different industries. You've held a few different titles throughout your career. So, sales, education. You were in an actress as well. So, as a lot of people might know, finding those transferable skills to move into new positions is usually the hardest part for people when they're like, I want to try something new, but what can I do? So it's very challenging to hammer that down. So how are you able to take what you learned from each step in your career and apply it to the next position as your career progressed?
That's kind of a funny story how it's almost like 10 years for each one. But
Mhm.
acting, it was like, I mean, that was what I always wanted to do. It was like my dream. And that was what I did like all through college and then moved out to DC and acted professionally out there for 10 years. But then while at the same time, I was also waiting tables to survive and working in the catering industry and the restaurant industry. I mean, I even did that in Michigan because I grew up and was, born in Michigan and then moved out to DC for those 10 years and back in Michigan now. But yeah, all of the like the waiting the tables and the customer service and all of those skills having to do with like not only rejection, because you get that in customer service too, in retail and restaurant business,
Yeah.
and then dealing with the high pressure. But honestly, even when it was going on, I didn't even realize those skills would be transferable until I started like looking into transitioning out of teaching. Wasn't even really paying attention to that when I was acting and in the restaurant industry,
Mhm.
because it was just like, oh, I thought I was just going to be at, I had my dreams of I'm going to be in theater and I'll be fine. I'll act for the rest of my life and I can wait tables and I'll be okay. And I did have one friend that did that who like is now like a really phenomenal actress, but yeah, it was just the pieces of it I think that helped the most, which I think can help with any job, is like being able to like adapt and improvise because that exists obviously in the theater world and then for sure in the acting world, or excuse me, for sure in the even in the education world. You got to be able to adapt and just fly by the seat of your pants sometimes while also having a plan, which sounds
Yeah.
very confusing. But yeah, it was just, but the way I started looking at it after when I was teaching, because it wasn't, I started looking and considering it, but it was to the point of where I was just kind of like ready. I was like, if there was something, I knew I wanted to do something different. I wasn't interested in doing, I didn't want to be a principal. My husband is, he's a principal at a district um, in this area. And this just wasn't something I wanted to do. And so I started, I think you interviewed Monica Wilkerson recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a friend of mine. And so she and I have talked quite a bit. And I did similar kind of what she did, but looked into, I was on LinkedIn, had no idea what I was doing, was just kind of like creeping and just watching. I will tell you, I did the wrong thing to do. I didn't do my research and paid for a coach
Okay.
without doing my research first. And I'm like, I can tell you who it was after we get off the call, just because then I just don't want people to go to her. It was just, I don't even know where she is anymore, but I wasn't doing my research first. So when I did that, paid this money, and then nothing happened, it was like I wanted somebody to do it for me, I think is what was going on. I was like, this is
Yeah.
just going to be too hard. So yeah, so all those what I ended up doing was I did like I joined this teacher career coach. Like I listened to this podcast is what I was doing just to get some ideas.
Mhm.
And then just started writing down things that I've done. And then I got a hold of Erin Luber, who's on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And just having a conversation with her and like not knowing what I wanted to do. And then what ended up happening was I had a conversation with a friend of mine who was a former teacher and she went into sales and I was terrified of it. And she was like, you have all this experience. And so I started writing all of those things down, looked at project management for a little bit. And then when I was talking to Erin and she was just like, what are like your top two or three choices? And then which one do you think you would like really be able to excel and takes the least amount of upskilling? Because by that point, I was so burnt out on school
Hmm. Yeah.
and I didn't, and getting into debt again.
Yeah.
So that was the piece. But those like picking all of those, what I ended up doing is I ended up pulling a bunch of different, I went onto LinkedIn and I was pulling different job postings. And then when I first started looking into transitioning out of education, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so started meeting other people. But then what ended up happening was I took that when I had to go back to school that fall, because I started looking in the fall of, I started considering it in the fall of 21. And then it was in 2022 is when I really started thinking about it.
Yeah.
And so I took that next year as a project year. So, and what I mean by that is like, because I was the director of the theater program. And I knew that all those skills, I was like, that's project management, but I'm also like generating leads. I'm also like in the sales world, I'm generating leads. I'm creating a pipeline. Like I'm trying to bring all of these students in. I'm building this program from scratch because it was a big program and then it went away. And then when I came on and brought it on, so I was doing everything new and creating a new, like how we can sell our tickets and building a website. And
Yeah.
I took all of those things as like my project and then just every single thing that I was doing, I made it work. Actually, it's on my LinkedIn page. That was one of the things. It was like in my about
Oh, okay.
section, like this is why I'm good at sales. And I like broke it down. Like these are the things I did as like a theater director. And like I have bullet points. Like I generated leads consistency. This is how.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, it's just getting a lot of, and it's just all those skills. I will say something else I did that I made a mistake on that I didn't know that I don't want people to make a mistake. Don't lie about like instead of saying that like I had to be proud of being an educator
Hmm.
because these other people were like there were some people that were saying, well, you weren't an educator, like don't put that on your resume, like, and I didn't for a while and tried to change my wording and it wasn't real.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was really just sitting down and it took a time. It was like 2 weeks over Christmas break. I sat down. What do SDRs, what do they do? What do BDRs do? How does that work? And then put that next to what I've done. And then Aaron did help me like figure out how to like word it. If I'm
Okay.
making sense. So yeah,
Gotcha.
that was a very long-winded question to your answer to your question.
No, it's great, and it's a perfect segue because next question is focused on your career now. You've been involved in sales focused positions since leaving the
Mhm.
classroom, and you told me what the initial appeal was, but you've been doing this for some time now. So, what have you enjoyed about it? What kind of keeps you motivated to stay in the industry and challenge yourself with this new role?
So yeah, I've been an SDR. It's about a year and a half that I've been doing it. And I in the beginning I didn't it was like I didn't like not knowing everything.
Hmm.
I hated it. In fact, I still feel like I struggle with that. Like it's like, but I was, I did that as a teacher too, where I'm like, oh, I need to learn more. I want more and more.
Yeah.
But with sale, it's like in the beginning, it was really scary. And I was taking everybody's advice. And on LinkedIn, everybody's an expert in case you didn't know, like everyone,
Right.
like you can like follow this person and this person. So, but my favorite part about sales, it's the conversations, which sounds cliche, but it's like it's super boring when I'm just calling and nobody's answering the phone. Like
Right.
yesterday, I was like, is anybody working today? Like nobody's answering the phone.
Not this week, I guess.
I know, I know. So it can get boring, that part of it. But then when you do talk to people, that's the part that I love. And so it ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
And I mean, what keeps me motivated, I will tell you, there was probably a year ago, maybe not a year ago, maybe about 6 months ago, but there was a call that I had made and the guy told me that he was going to come axe murder my whole entire family. I mean, it
Oh,
was just like, okay.
nice.
Um, yeah, but I'd been calling for long enough at least, because now it doesn't bother me. Now I want you to answer the phone. And I never thought that I would be that person ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I'm like, I want to talk to you. But yeah, when he's that, like, definitely, it took me that day. I remember I was like, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, no idea who the guy was. Maybe he just had a bad day. It's not
Right.
like it's apparent. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not personal
Yeah.
and even with theater and acting, like, it's like, I had to think about it. Like, I can do the audition, I do my best. But then after that, it's not up to me. It's like, does this person work with this person well? How do they look? Like, that's kind of how I would always look at it. Like, if I would get a call back, what you
Hmm.
call it, right? Then I
Right.
knew that my audition was successful. After that, it was like, okay, who works well together? So it's kind of how, like in sales, when I first started it, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like it. I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. But what stays me motivated, it sounds crazy because those lows are low, but then those highs are just like, okay, I
Yeah.
got this. I know what I'm doing. And it helps I have a really supportive team that
Yeah.
like believes in me, which is huge.
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
cause yeah, huge. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a good segue to the next question too, because
Hmm.
oftentimes that's overlooked. That the team that you're joining is just as important as the new role that you're going to be taking on, because if you're
Hmm.
changing careers, doing something new, you're going to need some guidance. You'll have the skills, you can do it, you can do it, but at the same time, like you said, you don't know everything. You've got to learn a lot of stuff, and
Hmm.
that's where the imposter syndrome comes in, I think. And
Hmm.
it's even happened for me going from recruiting to recruiting, like going from healthcare recruiting to corporate recruiting. There's that doubt that creeps in.
Hmm.
So, was that something that you had to deal with both, when you transitioned from acting into the classroom and then from classroom into the sales? And if so, what helped you overcome the self doubt and gave you confidence as you continue to learn?
The acting into the education, no, that wasn't as bit difficult because my dad taught for 37.
Mm,
That was like part of my family. So that was like
yeah,
natural,
it's in your in your
It
blood.
was
Yeah.
yeah, and I loved it and I was really good at it. So that was natural for me. And like you're kind of well, you are on stage a lot of the time when you're so I taught high school English, never
Hmm.
sat down.
Yeah.
And so it's constant.
Yeah.
But in terms of yeah, oh, I still deal with imposter syndrome. Like there are some people there's a few people on LinkedIn that I've connected with that I've never met in real life. Monica's
Hmm.
one of them. Kayla Lazenby, I don't know if you've
Hmm.
ever
Yep.
chatted with her, but there's a couple of us and we'll just kind of keep in touch and be like, "How you doing?
Yeah.
Doing all right? Man, I haven't booked anything this week. How you doing? Okay, don't give up, right? So we just it's like we've kind of created this little tribe kind of a
Like
little
a
bit.
hub.
And
Yeah.
even if we yeah, and it's not like all the time, but it's just like every
Hmm.
once in a while. But the imposter syndrome, I think I'm still dealing with it. And it's like I have to like I have sticky notes.
Yeah.
I have a sticky like I have a sticky note. This is one day at a time. This one says only control what you could control. Like because but I did that as a teacher too, where I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna get all these essays graded. It's never gonna happen. Like I'm never gonna
Yeah.
do it. I don't have enough time. And I always got it done.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it's legit. I had never even heard of what imposter. I didn't even know imposter syndrome. I didn't even know what it was
Right.
until I was like
Till you're in
in
it.
sales. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is happening? What is this? And then I'm seeing, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So it's like I have learned, and so if I'm having a hard time, if I can't, if it's not, if it's just me, sometimes I just have like I'm doing it now. Sometimes I just have to take a breath.
Yeah.
But the imposter syndrome, it's also the sticky notes and reminding myself, which sounds silly, but like I have to just do that. And then sometimes
Yeah.
my coworkers will have to talk me down, but
Right.
um it's just doing it. I just have to do it. Like,
Yeah.
and before asking for help, I have to try it myself first.
Yeah.
So that's how I've learned, really. But I don't know. Does it ever go away? Does it? I hope so.
No, probably not. Probably not, because there's always new things to learn. I'm finding.
That's
Even if
true.
you're like I've been in recruitment for 10 years and I still don't know everything. And
Uh-huh.
I never will. And I think that that's just a lesson I had to learn is you're never going to be the best at this. So just keep doing what you can to get as good as you feel comfortable with. What I
That's
try to look
good.
through.
I like that. That's a good lens to look through.
Yeah. So you've mentioned your network a few times,
Uh-huh.
and you mentioned joining LinkedIn, not knowing what to do. I was in the same boat. When I was in the classroom, I would get emails like, "Hey, join LinkedIn. So and so has invited you to join LinkedIn." I'm like, "What is this? I don't want more social media. No thanks." And then
Hmm.
I needed it out of nowhere. It's like, okay, now I need to join this professional network and figure out what to do. And it took me probably 3 years to figure out like what I wanted to do on LinkedIn, the brand
Uh-huh.
I wanted to build, everything like that. You've seemed, and correct me if I'm wrong, you seem to have figured that out a lot quicker than I did. So, what was kind of the key for you in terms of building your brand and figuring out, what to post? Because you post a lot of positivity on LinkedIn. So, what was that process like for you when you figured out I need to be on here and I need to brand myself to be successful in sales?
So the job that I have right now, first of all, the brand piece, that's a lot in that question. But the brand piece, I still feel like I'm
We'll dig
trying
into
to,
that a little bit
oh,
more
okay.
too.
Uh, now I gotta focus. All right, so wait, going back to LinkedIn. So like in the beginning, it was just dabbling, right?
Mhm.
So it was like, and just lurking, and every once in a while I would try and post. But LinkedIn, I didn't, that's how I found my job. I mean,
Mhm.
and it wasn't even, it was just me. I had been commenting, trying to comment more, still trying to figure it out, trying to post once in a while, had no idea what the hell I was doing. Am I allowed
Mhm.
to swear?
Yeah.
Because I curse a lot. Okay. But I won't.
Yeah. Don't
Uh,
censor yourself.
okay. But I had no idea. And so then I remember in the summer of 22, like I was trying to post, there was one month where I was like, I'm going to see if I can post like every day for a month. And I got through like a week and then something happened. And I was like, but I didn't want to just make stuff up.
Yeah.
It's like, why? I didn't even know what it meant to be. I had no idea.
Mhm.
But then there was one day where I had posted about it was so I have epilepsy. I have had I don't have seizures anymore. I've had two brain surgeries, so I haven't had a seizure in like 12 years. That's a lot to tell you in one sentence too, but um but like I had posted one day just about something about like hidden disabilities. Like you don't have a clue what people are dealing with on the inside. Not really disabilities, but like that piece of it too.
Yeah.
And like it was just like a rant. It was just not even about business. And you have all these people commenting on it. And that was the first time where I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
people, all right, okay. And then another time recently, like about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I posted about the Oxford comma and it went viral, like legit viral. And I was like, it's the first time that's ever happened. And they were like, it's ridiculous. And it's just like, it's just, you never know.
Right.
But what happened, like there was somebody had posted a comment, just posted on LinkedIn one day. This is back in like December of 20, or no, January of 23, maybe something like
Mhm.
that, I think is when it was. And someone had posted, if you're hiring for any sales roles. And by that point, because it was over Christmas break that year, the previous year, that few months before that I'd worked on everything. And so someone, looking for roles. And so Heather, she doesn't work for us anymore. But my former boss, she had, posted about it, commented on it. And so check this out. So I had commented on her post and then she forwarded me to somebody else at our company, interviewed with him. I didn't know it was an interview when we were talking. I didn't
Mhm.
know, like it was just a conversation.
That's great.
Yeah, and then it didn't end up happening that time because they hired internally and then we just kept in touch. Like I had messaged them on LinkedIn a couple times, like asking them some questions. And then a couple months later, he called me and he was like, "We have this role that I think you'd be great. It's something that I think you should try, and I think you'd be great for it." And I was interviewing for other companies, and so that's how I got the job I have now was just from networking. And so that was like, so that happened early.
Hmm.
So when that happened, I'm like, okay. So it was just really trying to stay, and I wasn't posting as much. I don't post as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
I love on Wednesdays to post on Hump Day. Like that's just something
Yeah.
fun that I love to do. It just sets my mood. But Ashley Beck Quayer, do you follow her? Her last name is spelled Cuellar.
I might potentially.
She, I'll send you her information. But
Yeah.
and Darren McKee, do you follow Darren
Yeah,
McKee?
Darren, I do.
I did one of his cohorts in just to kind of see how it went about social selling. And I did that in June. And
Hmm.
it was like 4 weeks in a row. And we met for like an hour and a half. And there were a bunch of us that would have conversations. And so I did that to learn and met a lot of people through that way too.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm figuring it out as I go along. It's like I still don't know. Ashley, I'll talk to, and when I was talking to her, she had one of the piece of advice she told me was pick something that you can talk about for like an hour and then just nonstop, like pick things you can talk about. And there are some people that will go and like do schedules. I don't do that. If I
Yeah.
think of it, I post it. It's really hard to balance
Hmm.
getting on LinkedIn, making sure you're commenting, also working, and then finding time to post.
Right.
It's like, how do you, so I'm currently right now trying to figure out that balance myself. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't have advice for that. It's just trying to post when I think about it. And I'm trying to not think about like the engagement. I'm just trying to stay relevant.
Yeah.
Um, but that being said, I still have other things that I have to work through in terms of uh the brand piece, but that's a
Yeah.
different topic. But
Yeah,
yeah.
well, let's jump into that. And I mean, you're
Hmm.
absolutely right. You hear so many different things. I try to post 3 times a week. That's
Hmm.
my general rule. Don't always hit that because,
Hmm.
like you said, you don't want it to feel authentic. If I sit down and I'm like, oh, I should post, and then I sit there and stare at the
Right.
computer for 30 minutes, I'm just wasting time.
Hmm.
So when it comes to you, that's great. But still, like I've given myself some parameters, like you with Hump Day. I have maximize Monday to say, okay,
This is
well, I will
great.
at least post once a week with this,
Yeah.
and then we'll
Yeah.
see where that takes me. But the building the brand is probably the hardest part, and you do some video content on there, and that's a large hurdle for a lot of people,
Hmm.
because video content is king. You hear that kind of across all social media, and LinkedIn is no different. But a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that, and even if it's just a quick 5-10 second video. So did the acting background help you feel confident in creating, sharing video? Was it all the time that you spent? I mean, being in front of a classroom of high school students is it gets you comfortable, whether you want to be or not. You have to be.
Hmm.
So, was it all that background that helped you now when it comes to content creation?
I think so. I think that was a huge piece of it. And I've just started like, yeah, dabbling into video recently because like maybe within just the last couple of months, but I'm just using my phone. Like there are people that
Yeah,
are a lot more high tech than I am, but I'm just trying to dabble in it. And then I'm trying to keep it short too. But I
right.
probably, yeah, I mean, I think that that is a huge piece of it. I'm not shy. I can talk to anybody and talk to a freaking brick wall. Like
Mm.
I just don't, but I also can talk too much.
Yeah,
I can talk a lot and ramble.
yeah.
Um, but I'll tell you the video, excuse me. Um, I went to a conference in September, Dale Dupree. I don't know if you follow him. He does the Sales Rebellion. He's great. But I went to a conference with him and one of the speakers there, Kevin KD Dorsey is his name, and he had was speaking about video and he was asking everybody like how many of you send videos? And there were like maybe 10 people out of 50, maybe.
Yeah,
And it's just like this people just like you said, like people are just worried and nervous about doing it. But I'm sure my acting background and teaching and it was helpful. But the other thing is I had to stop recording it and deleting it, recording it and deleting it. I'm just gonna record it and do it.
yeah,
Like that was something I had to get past. And then I don't like the filters. There are people that care about that stuff. I just don't. Maybe
yeah.
I should, but I don't. But I'm sure my theater background had to have been like standing in front of all those kids for sure helped.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I mean, I'm the same way when it comes to video. Like you and I talking right now, this is nothing. I
Uh-huh.
sent you the questions, but it's unscripted. So if it's just me, if I'm trying to record like a 30-45 second video, it takes me probably an hour just because I'm like, nope, I hate this. Nope, I'm scrapping this. So like you said, you just have to do it sometimes.
I
And
know.
it's a lot easier when someone else is there because then I feel like, well, I can't just be like, oh, hey, we got to pause here because I got to cut this and restart. Like I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that to someone. So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, definitely just getting over that hurdle is key. And the other side of branding is you have to, in sales and recruitment, like you have to have a brand. You have to stand apart from everyone else who's doing this on LinkedIn or just professionally in general. But at the same time, and this is coming from someone who's had his wrist slapped a few times in the past, you have to be cognizant of your company brand. So how was finding that balance in terms of I'm going to post and be authentic and at the same time represent the brand that I'm working for? How did that play into your development?
Well, I'd asked originally because because as a teacher, I mean, you can't,
Yeah,
like it's,
yeah,
yeah. So, I asked, I was like, is it okay? And they want me to keep posting because I know there are some people that they don't like it when they post. And
mm-hmm.
so I'm still trying to even think of more creative ways and I need to bring in like even talk about frontline more often, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to make it just about them. And they've been great
Right.
about that. It's like people are going to work with us if they like what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
and other people too. It's not just me, but um but I did ask because I know there are some people that won't. And even when I was interviewing with other companies, I'd ask, I'm like, is this something you're okay with? Like, is posting on LinkedIn a problem? Is that, and it's common sense, and they were
Yeah.
just, because a friend of mine, I'm not going to mention, but that works for another company in sales, and she was just telling me how her company they didn't want her posting anything,
Yeah.
nothing. And it's just, so yeah, but of course I'm going to be respectful. So,
Right.
and I
Right.
think maybe it is that it's like, would I post this if, but I would post things differently on LinkedIn than I ever did on Facebook anyway.
For
I
sure. Yeah.
barely post on Facebook anyway, but,
Yeah.
um,
It's
but
crazy
yeah,
that's like the newest social media that I use more than anything is LinkedIn, more than
isn't
anything
it?
else. Yeah. And I will say, if you're watching, listening, just a word of advice: Bird Box and it memes are not acceptable. So that was the hard lesson that I learned early on in my career when posting. But
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That
um,
is so funny.
speaking of posting, you recently had a post where you talked about how focusing on the success of others can be detrimental to your own personal and professional growth and success. And especially in sales, I would say that stands out. If you're constantly comparing yourself to the next person, then that's certainly going to hinder
Hmm.
you. So how do you challenge yourself to kind of live by this mindset and focus on your own wins as opposed to getting distracted by the wins of others?
I recently started writing them down. Like, and I'm starting to like remembering what I have done that's well. And then, and honestly, I actually made a couple phone calls like right before that post. I know what you're talking about.
Mm,
And I was just like, oh my God, like I had to get out of my head. I'm like, this is ridiculous because you got all these people um, that are totally in different places in their lives than I am. That I was like, oh my gosh, holy cow, this person is like 24 years old and they're already going to start their own business. And wouldn't that be awesome? And but then they're single and um don't like and can do that. And it was just like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm not but then at the same time I had a conversation with Kayla about this recently, and we were both talking like, okay, like we're trying to figure this transition out ourselves. We're
Mm,
doing well for our families. Like we talked to each other and it was just like, look, like you're kicking it, not kicking it. You're killing it right now, Kayla. She's super overwhelmed right now because she has a new job too.
mm,
Um, and so we were able to like talk each other down, like you're doing really well and you're figuring this out, and it's just not looking. And the other thing I did, I went into LinkedIn and I got rid of all of my, this is an idea I got from Ashley, was I got rid of all of my bells, like
okay.
my like from like 2 years ago.
Mm,
Because I was following all those people that had nothing to do with me, and I only kept the bells on of people that I might want to like work with maybe one
okay.
day, because it didn't clutter my feed up. And then all of these people that I was following from forever ago that weren't relevant anymore, if I'm making sense,
Yeah.
then it's not cluttered. And then I can see if someone at least like mentions me.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is like tags me so that I can and respond to them.
right.
Because it was just getting
It's just
overwhelming and
getting
just
buried.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I had to, that was a week. There was a lot happening that week, and I'm just like, I had to like to have a conversation with myself. I was getting back into my breathing. Like I had to like really tell my like because I have this is what my technically third career, I guess. Maybe
Mm,
not really, but technically my second career with health insurance and retirement. You don't get any of that when you're in acting.
right.
um, but I mean you do. But anyway, so yeah, it's really just keeping myself solid and and making sure that I just don't, because I can't do that. And
Yeah.
I just can't. So I mean,
Mm,
but you should see the sticky notes. I need to do like a podcast of my own sticky notes. I have one there that says take one day at a time, set priorities, and be balanced.
yeah.
Those are also the things.
Yeah. My desk is littered with them as well. So it's
Glad I'm not alone.
yeah, it's a dated use. I'm sure I could easily just type this stuff out and be a little cleaner, but I like the chaos.
Well, and I like, oh, and you know what? Something else I wanted to say real quick was I remember because I can get caught up in, and I remember even in my theater days, I specifically remember auditioning for a role. I was in grad school and I didn't get the role I wanted. This other girl did, and she was a friend of mine. And I had to like, I was sad for myself, but I was like, look, I had to like put myself in her shoes. Like, just because I didn't get what I wanted, Like I have to be happy for her. Now, of
Mm,
course, I was sad in my own little world, and I would probably,
sure.
I remember going and being upset, but it's like I have to focus and be happy for her. And that's what I did. It was just like I had to completely shift my mindset,
Yeah.
which I feel like I have to do all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. So, last question I have for you, and it's the last question I have for everyone who joins the show, and it always makes me smile because it's you've given off a lot of advice this past 30 minutes, and here I am asking you for more. But what's that key piece of advice that you've received along the course of your career that's always stood out to you as something that you find yourself falling back on, like, oh, remember this person told me this, or if someone comes to you, Lindsay, I'm trying to switch careers. You've done this. What advice can you give me? What's usually the one piece of advice you find yourself giving more than others?
do your research and make sure, like, which is not helpful. That's very vague. But what I mean by that is like find people that have done what, like, if you don't know, then find a teacher that has transitioned into sales and see if
Mm-hmm.
you can find a teacher that transitioned into start there. But just the best advice that I've gotten at all is really just like trusting in myself and just like don't be in a rush. Like it took me a year and a half, and
Yeah.
it was like and I tried the easy way first. I tried like spraying and praying, doing all the email or doing all of those, paid for a coach that I didn't figure out was doing the right thing, didn't ask enough questions. So don't do that. Like you've got
Mm-hmm.
to ask questions because I'm the queen of questions. But um being yourself and like if it's something that you really want to do, then you just got to be patient. Like it just can't be because I think if I would have rushed, for me, it was not like I know there are some teachers that were able just to quit and like
Mm-hmm.
not have a job. That wasn't me. So
Yeah.
it's hard. Like when you're looking, it's exhausting. And there were a bunch of times where I was like, this is, and then when I had to go back that fall for the next 6 months, um, it's disheartening when you go back, but just looking at it as a project year, I think is what helped me.
Yeah.
But like it sounds cliche, but you got to be patient and then you just got to know that you're going to be able to get through it. For me, I had to keep telling myself that, and I
Yeah.
always get it done. It might take me longer than I want it to take, but I just had to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. All
for
right.
sure.
All right. Well, Lindsay, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on here this morning. The early wake up call to do this is
I know.
much appreciated.
Yeah.
But if you're not connected with following Lindsay, make sure that'll be linked in the comments on any social media app and tagged on LinkedIn. So make sure you're connected, following with her. Hope you have a great week ahead, and we will see you next Monday.
Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.